Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today we are discussing what is probably one of the sorriest ships in game, but a ship that deserves to be in a whole hell of a lot better state than what she currently is in. And that is the Tier 8 Premium British battleship, the Vanguard. Now, the Vanguard is a majorly historically significant ship for one region. She is the last battleship ever. This is the last ever designed, laid down, constructed, launched, and commissioned battleship in history. Now, I know some of you already raced into the comment section and say, actually, Sealord, the Jean Bar was the last commissioned battleship. And while technically that's kinda true, the thing is, the Jean Bar was laid down in 1936, and she was finished in, the 50s? 1955? So she got pushed back because of, that little issue with the Germans from, 1939 to 1945, whereas the Vanguard was laid down in 1941 and finished in 1946. So the Vanguard is a much newer design of ship, right? Took a lot of the lessons learned during the war into her design, and of course she's much more modern. And of course, yes, the Jean Bar did get refit and such, but so did the Vanguard into the 60s. But by laying down date, the Vanguard is, the last battleship. And that's what we're going by here. And that's what many others go by when I dig into that issue. Now, the Vanguard is the actual real-life Lion-class battleship. You see, what had happened was the British were concerned about being outnumbered by German and Japanese battleships, so they started constructing the Lion class. However, constructing new 16-inch guns were going to take a hot minute, so they basically took a shortcut and took the 15-inch turrets and guns they already had constructed and bolted them onto a Lion hull. That's a TLDR description of how the Vanguard came about. So with that, the Vanguard got created, and she's a modified Lion class. And of course, the Lions were never built because, the war ended. So that's how we got the ship you're looking at on screen. So let's talk about the actual ship you're looking at on screen with the Warships version of the Vanguard. Well, she's quite terrible in game. And even back in the day when she was released, she wasn't that well received at all. It's not like she was like, she was pretty good or okay back in the day and she's just, fallen from grace. Not exactly. She was bad back in the day as well, and she hasn't gotten any better at all. So let's talk about why she is. First off, though, there's a lot about the Vanguard I do like. She's quite fast and she's quite maneuverable. She's literally on the same level as cruisers when it comes to her rudder shift time. She has a 10-ish second rudder shift time depending upon how you want to build her. And that's great for dodging torpedoes and being a fast and maneuverable battleship. I think that does reflect the fact that she is, again, the last battleship ever constructed quite well, right? But that's where the good really stops. And by that, too, I do mean, her survivability and all makes sense for a fast battleship, right? I'm not expecting a battleship that can turn like a cruiser to be overly well protected, right? So that all makes sense. That all checks out in my book. What really makes her suffer is her main battery guns. Now, I know, like we just mentioned, these are the 15-inch guns that the British had laying around, but you're still putting them on a modern battleship with modern fire control and all that jazz, right? Then why, oh why, are her main battery guns so friggin' bad? These guns they have to be some of the most frustrating guns to use in the game, tier for tier at least, right? And if you look at them on paper, you might be thinking, Sealord, they don't look that bad. You get 8 15-inch guns at tier 8 with a 25-second reload time, which, true, that right there is a pretty nice combination. 15-inch guns, 25-second reload time at tier 8. Those guns are about par for the course for a tier 8 battleship. That reload time is very nice. Sure, that's all 100% true. But when you actually sit down and play this ship in game, oh my god. So, first off, the guns, I don't know why these guns are so wildly inaccurate. You'll be putting half of your shots in the water from 10 kilometers away with a tier 8 battleship. I'm sorry, but like at tier 8, you shouldn't be dunking half of your shells into the water consistently with any battleship, right? But the Vanguard, sure enough, it does that. Now, of course, you might be led to believe that, well, you're throwing 8 guns at the target. However, you're really not throwing 8 shells at the target most of the time. In reality, you're maybe tossing 4 at them. You might get to 8 every now and then, but it's going to be 4 most of the time because the gun angles absolutely are atrocious with the Vanguard. They're so bad, they make the German turret angles look excellent by comparison. You are quite literally maybe 5 to 10 degrees off from full flat broadside if you try to get all 8 of your guns on target. And even then, you're still going to be putting half of the shells in the water from anything, that's further out than 8, 9 kilometers. Even at like 8 or 9 kilometers, you're still dumping half of the shells in the water because of Vanguard turrets. This is a prime example of a situation that many of us call dual gun syndrome, where it seems to be that the ships in game that have the dual turret setups, meaning you have 2 guns per turret, they just seem to have absolutely just terrible dispersion, and that seems to be the case here with the Vanguard. So what winds up happening is, because, like I said, the ship isn't that well armored, as it is a fast battleship, and the Citadel is very much exposed, you get in these situations where you're tossing 4 shells at the target, yet you're putting most of your shells in the water, or just outright missing, because of the dispersion. And if you want to try and use your rear turrets, if you're not super careful about that, you're going to get blapped and lose most of your HP. And she does not have a super heal like her tier 9 and tier 10 counterparts, so it's not like you can kind of screw up once, but then you have a get out of jail free card. None of that at all. And what barely keeps this ship in the usable category is the fact that it still has better-ish HE. I won't say it's good HE because it's not. It's the same HE shells that you can find on the tier 8 tech line battleship, the Monarch, but the Monarch has 9 guns with a 25-second reload, whereas the Vanguard has 8 guns with a 25-second reload. And the Monarch is, in my opinion, the comfier ship to play because, you're throwing another shell at the target. You have 6 guns in the front of your ship because you have the 3 turrets set up on the Monarch, but you have the triple turrets instead of the dual turrets. So the Monarch can sit there and stay very steeply angled, bow tanking, and still be throwing 6 shells at the target, whereas the Vanguard, if you have to be in a bow tanking situation, you're only throwing 4 shells at the target. Yeah. Now, what kept the Vanguard playable back in the day and still keeps her playable today is the fact that she is very highly maneuverable. So you can use that cruiser rudder shift time to get your rear turrets on target and then quickly try to turn and angle your ship sharply enough to where you aren't going to get vibe checked by whatever ship is returning fire at you. And that's still the way that I play the ship today. But, I mean, good lord, even HE spamming, the ship it's such a struggle to do a decent amount of damage in today's World of Warships. Especially in the situations like you're watching in the background, where it's a pretty one-sided game, and you're having to pretty much chase down the enemy team for a good chunk of the match. Now, the game you're watching in the background was like that for the first half-ish of the match, and then it kind of got a little close there at the end, but I don't think we were ever in any serious danger of losing. But, I had to go from one side of the map to the other side of the map, and thankfully the ship is fairly fast to do that, right? And you just keep HE spamming. You use AP every now and then when you can find those broadsides, or the ships do sell broadside to you. But even then, again, with the accuracy of the guns, it's just like, oh my god, can I not get some good, consistent hits here? So it's such a frustrating ship to play in the meta of today's World of Warships that, again, it's so much more passive than it was when the Vanguard was originally released. And it's just so frustrating to play. Now, she has some things going for her that does definitely help out with today's World of Warships. That rudder shift time is a blessing, of course, with submarines being everywhere. And given the fact that battleships have a 2-kilometer dehoming range for the torpedoes. That's the range at which those submarine torpedoes stop homing on battleships. You're not going to really get hit by torpedoes in the Vanguard from submarines. Really, with the Vanguard, if you have any vague idea of where the destroyer or the submarine is at, you really don't have to worry about it because of that rudder shift time and how fast the ship is. So that's something about it that has aged very well in today's World of Warships. But yeah, HE spamming all the time with shells that are wildly inconsistent and again just seem to miss more often than anything. It's not a great ship in today's World of Warships, and it doesn't really make sense that the last battleship ever built with, the most modern technology, of course not including the Iowas with their, refits in the 70s and 80s. Why are these shells so wildly inaccurate? And the ship has not received a single buff since her initial release. I think it's beyond time for maybe a slight Sigma buff or a slight dispersion buff for the Vanguard. I'm not trying to say it needs to be like a tier 8 Thunderer by any stretch of the imaginations, but like just a little bit of love to where the shells actually hit the target more often than not would be of a great asset to the Vanguard's long-term survivability. And again, a ship that really does deserve it, as it is the last battleship ever constructed in history. So that's my spiel about the Vanguard. Obviously, I would not suggest picking her up. She is not really worth it. When I'm saying that the Monarch, a ship that most of you guys will probably argue is a terrible ship, is better than the Vanguard, but yet most of you probably will agree with me that that statement is true, it's really not worth it, fellas. If you do get in a container or whatever, take it for a spin. Maybe if you like super heavy cruisers, it might appeal to you, but again, cruisers can at least get their shells on target, unlike the Vanguard. So yeah, just a very sad state for such a historically significant ship. So guys, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below about the Vanguard. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Just share your 2 cents down below. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate you guys doing that. It helps out, of course, tremendously so on the YouTube side of things. Hope you guys have a great Tuesday and a great rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.